All right, welcome everyone to a very special episode with the Boiling Point, episode 10, the NASCAR Informative. We're going to talk about NASCAR today, but it's a special episode because it's also episode 10, so this marks our first double-digit episode, as well as the man who was supposed to be my co-host when this whole thing started, but mandatory overtime said that he could not, but he's here now as a guest, and he'll be joining me later on for the second podcast I filmed this evening. That one will be with Curtis. We'll be talking about the Star Trek franchise. That'll be later on, the second episode, which I'll post probably the day after I post this one. First, let's pay the bills. Go to facebook.com/theboilingpoint. I have all the links up there so you can go and you can buy, there's shirts, there's all kinds of apparel that you can buy, as well as a new mug that has the Boiling Point logo on it, as well as the web address. So get on there and buy some stuff if you like this podcast. But now we're going to jump into the episode. Nick, welcome to the show. It's been 9 episodes coming for you to finally join me. So we're going to talk about NASCAR today, yeah?
Yeah, we are.
One more thing. I'm sorry. Don't mean to cut you off there, but I just wanted to say that this is actually dedicated to the memory of Gordon Ford. He was a close family friend. He died a few weeks ago. He was a big NASCAR fan. And so he was a Dale Jarrett fan, actually, for a long time. So this episode's dedicated to his memory. NASCAR.
Yes.
Go ahead, Nick. Take us in. Let's talk about NASCAR.
I won't hold it against him that everybody can be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, being a Dale Jarrett fan and all. But, you know, he was a good guy. And we both felt very compelled to do this, I believe.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes. We wanted to do this episode. But after we lost him, we definitely wanted to dedicate this episode to his memory. And we're going to talk about a lot of NASCAR here. We're going to talk about the past NASCAR. We're going to talk about the present NASCAR and whether there's likely to be a future NASCAR based on where the sport's going right now.
In my opinion, with the way the sport's headed now, I really don't see much of a future.
I would agree with that.
We'll get into that then here in a little bit. But I think right now with the chase coming, it's, you know, things are starting to amp up a little bit. Things are a little interesting, and there is a little bit of excitement going on. I don't think it's enough.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, I'm not a fan of the chase since they brought these tournament kind of bracket style rules to NASCAR, this postseason as they call it. I don't think NASCAR needs a postseason. I think it's complete nonsense. You and I grew up at a time where, in the 90s when NASCAR was arguably at its peak at that time, attendance was at an all-time high. They were selling out every track they went to. Ratings were through the roof. Of course, that was before Dale Earnhardt died, which I believe was a key factor into where the sport went to after his death.
Absolutely.
Because anytime they changed something or did something that was against what the sport was, he was always the first person to speak up, and then other drivers were compelled to speak up after him, feeling the security of the man in black, the legend Dale Earnhardt, speaking out and saying, yo, this is garbage. Then other drivers felt compelled to do that too. Tony Stewart was another one of those drivers who would say things that if something was done that was incorrect. And, some of the changes that they've made are certainly not to the benefit.
Oh, yeah, and I would agree with that. Dale Earnhardt, he was the voice for the drivers.
Yeah.
He was the man. He was the one everybody looked up to. He had taken over the role of the King, Richard Petty, who was the speaker for his generation as well.
Yes, both of those drivers, Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt, were 7-time Winston Cup champions. Jimmy
Yes.
Johnson also now falls into that category because he won his 7th title last year or the year before, I believe it was. So unfortunately, we have to include him in, even though a lot of his titles came under the new format and not the old one that all the drivers have gotten their championships from.
And I feel like Jimmy Johnson had an opportunity to be the voice of the drivers.
Yeah.
For some reason, he just didn't embrace that.
Yeah, well, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but the more changes they made, the more championships and races he won. It's hard to argue when there are changes that they're making is helping your career.
This is true.
Yeah. So let's talk about when how NASCAR was when we were younger. There was no quarters. Races were not broken up into quarters. There was no postseason. The point system was fairly complicated. It certainly wasn't the easiest point system, and they certainly could have made changes to the point system at that time to make it a little bit easier and a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
But even so, the point system was certainly, I think, a better barometer for the sport than what they have now. This postseason thing, too much of it is based on winning at the right time, winning only on certain races and tracks, and I think that's you know what I mean. The thing about NASCAR is it's always been season long. It's always about how well you did over the whole season.
Yeah, and I feel like they lost some of that when they switched over to the chase format. And I want to play devil's advocate on that here in a little bit. But I think, yeah, the points format that they had where, there was one champion. And you knew he was the one that won the most races, led the most laps,
or at least consistently finished most towards the top.
Had the best finishes overall. Got the most points. He was the champion.
Yes.
There was no question about that. There was no controversy, nothing. It was what it was. He was the champion, and that was all there was to it.
Yeah, because even most of the champions won a race, even though statistically and theoretically you could, with the old point system, you could win without actually winning any races. You could still win the points championship as long as you finished high enough every race. That was the thing about the points. It was about consistency, finishing most consistently. So if you finished in the top 10 most consistently, then you were higher in the points. So, and you get these flash in the pans, they win one race. They should, just because they win one race doesn't mean that they should be included in anything. You know what I mean? Racing has always been about a season-long thing, not an individual race. Individual races are great, but it's always about season-long. The championship has been.
And to take that a little bit further, during our time when NASCAR was at its peak, I mean, they were selling out venues that held 70,000+ people.
Yeah. Dover, Bristol, they can hold like 150,000 people. So you're talking about like hundreds of thousands of people they were selling out,
and they were selling tickets almost a year in advance.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was part of the beginning of the end for NASCAR, because they started building bigger venues, more seating, more expansion and expanding to the point to where they lost their exclusivity. You can walk up to a gate and get the ticket, whereas beforehand you had to work to get that ticket.
Yeah, but the changes with the tracks though are more about because the tracks aren't owned by NASCAR. Most of them are not.
A good bit of them are, actually. The family that owns NASCAR also owns International Motor Speedways.
Okay, so they do own a number of them, but still not necessarily all of them. So not all track expansions or seat expansions were done by NASCAR necessarily, is what I'm saying. Not all of them.
No, not all of them.
Necessarily.
But we are slowly transitioning.
What do you think about the car changes? Because after they were starting to do some of the car changes right when Dale Earnhardt Sr. had his tragic accident and wrecked, and that's also when they implemented a lot of safety protocols, which were probably good and necessary for the sport. It's a shame we couldn't get them beforehand, but at least something something good did come out of that, and that was driver safety. The head and neck device was certainly the biggest thing that came out of that. But what do you think when they started changing the car of tomorrow, as they called it many years ago when they first started changing the cars? Do you think that's when the sport really started suffering? Because in my opinion, when they first started using the cars of tomorrow, there was a lot of things. Tracks raced differently, cars handled differently now, and I think it took away competition, not added to it.
Well, I think that's a double-edged sword, because yes, we absolutely needed the safety for the drivers.
Yeah.
But at what point does safety go too far? I mean, it is racing. It is dangerous. These drivers know that going into that.
Yeah.
Yes. When somebody gets injured or killed, it is unfortunate. But to play devil's advocate, they know that signing up for it.
Yes, absolutely. It is a dangerous sport, and yes, of course, there's some risk involved, and some of, like I said, the head and neck device, certainly a great change that certainly protected drivers. And the car of tomorrow, I think you're right. They, in an effort to try and protect the drivers more, they made too many changes to the car itself.
Well, and yeah, the car itself. If you watch an old race, let's just take Daytona for example,
A super
or
speedway,
Talladega, a
yeah.
super speedway, where you have the fastest speeds and the cars are closer together than you would park your car at Walmart.
Yes.
For example.
Yes, 3 seconds and all 43 cars could drive by. I
Be-
love those camera angles of right next to the track when all 43 cars would just zoom right by. It would be like 3 seconds and all of them would have been by. It's crazy.
But the old car would dance around a little bit. It was a little raw. Yeah, it was a little, unrefined.
Yeah.
So you could see that even just watching it on TV. You could tell that driver had his hands full.
Yeah.
And with the newer car, quite honestly, watching it on TV, they look like they're out for a Sunday drive.
Yes, because also in the draft now, a lot of things with the car that the new cars did was in the old days when the races that we used to watch and stuff in a track like Daytona or Talladega, the super speedways, when you could pass people as long as you had help. Everybody was all bunched together, but as long as you had somebody behind you pushing you, you could go out and pass somebody. Now it seems like it doesn't there isn't 2 lanes anymore. It's 1 lane. And anytime even a group of people try and go out and go to the outside lane to go around, they don't have enough. It's like they just don't have enough to get around them. So the super speedways aren't quite as exciting. There's not as much jockeying for position, maneuvering around as there used to be.
I would disagree with that because with the new changes that have been made to the drafting format and the aerodynamics of the car, they have presented more opportunities for passing and multiple lanes, and they've also done things like they started using some sort of grip stuff that gets sprayed on the track. But again, we're just putting band-aids on issues that need to be resolved, not just patched over.
Yeah.
And to go back to the way the car's handled, watching a race and seeing somebody fight this car around the track and do everything they can not to wreck into the guy beside them and win the race, you'd see, it was nothing to see, for example, Dale Earnhardt. He'd get out of the car, he'd take them goggles off of his head, and his face would just be black. Mm-hmm. His driver's suit would be all crusty and dingy and sweaty.
Yeah, he'd be sweating. Yep.
You could tell they were exhausted, and you could tell they had just spent 4 hours wrestling that car around the track.
Yep.
And you could relate with them. They were very relatable drivers as well.
Yeah.
They just seemed like very common men who, just on Sunday hopped in their car and decided to see who was the best.
Yeah.
Now it's so refined and so polished and so politically correct and so
that too,
all about the sponsors and the money, and these drivers, they don't have that anymore. They
something that you also see more today than back in the day is cars changing teams or drivers changing teams.
Yes.
That happens a little bit more often than it certainly did when we would watch racing, because someone who would drive a car would drive that car for 10 years at least.
A lot more often.
Yeah, if not more. I mean, yeah, we used to watch a lot of the drivers that were with the same team, the same car every year for all the way through the 90s, and even before the 90s they were still with those same teams. So, and now you don't see that as much. Like you said, it's a little bit more about the money, you know what I mean, who's got the better deal. So, and teams switching it up. There are a lot more teams now, I guess, that are competitive as far as independent racing teams. Because one of the rule changes they made, and that was even before even Dale Earnhardt Sr. died, was that teams can only have so many cars under their umbrella. A car owner can only own so many cars, which I think was a good rule change. I'm not sure what it is right now. I'm not sure how many cars people can own right now.
Still 4.
Is it still 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you also have, for example, Hendrick Motorsports. Mm-hmm. They're only allowed to have 4 cars that enter that race. but there might be 20 cars in that field that are driving Hendrick engines.
Yep.
Or Hendrick chassis.
Yep.
Or, other parts.
Yep, you are right. Yep, they do. That does happen a lot. That where it's their car, but it's not their team. So it's kind of like a loophole, I guess, is what you're saying.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I don't really care. As long as what NASCAR, they needed help, and I think the higher up teams, the teams that make more money, if they can help the teams that don't have as much money, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. Because they needed something so that more drivers were more competitive. But I don't think what they needed were these rule changes where they started breaking up races now into quarters and adding a postseason. This is not football. This is not baseball. We don't need a race broken up into 4 parts for it to feel more like football. We don't need a postseason to make it feel more like baseball. It's NASCAR. It's racing. It's its own sport. That's what it should be. It shouldn't be changing to fit what other sports are doing.
Most races are actually 3 segments, not 4.
Whatever.
But still, regardless, it doesn't matter.
Okay, they broke it up into thirds.
It's still, again, it's another rule change just to put a Band-Aid on the issue.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the chase for a minute.
Yeah.
So you have drivers who spend the whole season being consistent and getting, top 5, top 10 finishes.
Yeah.
But because they didn't win a race,
yes,
they most likely don't make the chase.
If there's enough wins. The thing, when I was looking over just quickly, that, because it goes to wins first. You have to win. And then if there are more, if there's multiple winners, or a driver has multiple wins, then it falls to points. So it would be then whoever's the most consistent. Yeah. The only way to ensure you get to the NASCAR's postseason is with a win. Or with a race win.
And then, so it starts out with 16 drivers.
Yeah.
And then they do 3 races.
Yeah.
At the end of those 3 races, 4 drivers are eliminated, which takes it down to 12.
Yeah.
And then they just do that until the final 4.
Yeah.
So you take that aspect of it, and they continue to carry if you win, you advance.
Yep.
So you have 3 races. Let's say you have 3 different winners. So you only have one person who has the chance of advancing based on points.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't know. I've got issues with that.
Yeah, I think it's I think eliminating people. I think that as soon as they changed it, remember when they first changed it and it was just the cutoff? Remember, it was just the top 10 drivers or the top 12 drivers at a certain point, and then all the points got reset to 0?
Yes.
For the final 10 races or whatever it was?
Yeah.
And that was the first inception of the chase. And I think that's where you got it wrong, because some of the drivers who were just outside the points could statistically still made a run at the title. So you're eliminating people from winning the championship, and I don't like that at all. I think if who cares? I think if you have a chance to win, then you should have a chance to win. Like I said, it's season long. It shouldn't be 3/4 of the season, and then the final fourth of the season is a postseason or whatever. The whole point of a points championship with racing was that you give it to the person with the most points throughout the whole season. Not 3/4 of the season, the whole season.
And NASCAR's answer to that was to create 2 champions.
Yeah, one for the regular point system and one for their chase, which is also the most ridiculous thing. Yeah, let's have 2 champions. Yeah, let's have a sport with 2 champions. That's always how it should go. I mean, listen to me. I mean, how many? I mean, I know in the NFL, going for both the Super Bowl titles is what teams long for. They want both of those Super Bowl titles, right? Okay? I mean, name a ship to me that doesn't set sail without 2 captains.
Well, there's always a captain and a first mate.
Well, that's not 2 captains.
But, correct.
So, but 2 titles. That sounds like, yes, 2 champions. That makes it clear.
So,
of course, then we could jump to wrestling, and we could talk very briefly about the WWE and about how they have multiple world titles and how it completely disintegrates what that world title means in the first place. And that's what I'm saying about NASCAR. 2 champions makes it what? 2 champions?
Yeah.
What?
the fact that they thought that was the answer to the problem
Yeah.
just further amplifies
That they're out of
the fact
touch.
that, correct.
Yeah, they don't know what they're
They
doing.
have no idea what they're doing.
No.
And
They're
then
just trying.
This year, they decided to take this season as kind of like a free-for-all season where they were just trying all kinds of stuff to see what stuck and what didn't stuck. Did you think you would ever see a NASCAR race where the cars had underglow neon lights?
No.
Yes, that happened.
No.
I'll let that sink in for a second.
But I also never expected one of the drivers to mistake a piece of equipment for a noose either.
Oh yeah, there is that.
And of course, they totally backed that. NASCAR jumped right behind that. They
Oh,
jumped
yeah.
without even finding out the facts. They didn't even care about the facts, and that's what hurt them.
Well, NASCAR has become political, and it's all about the headlines and the popularity, and they're playing politics.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be. Sports shouldn't be playing
No.
politics, which would segue us into football. But we'll leave that alone.
Yeah,
But
let's stay away from that for right now.
But still, like, that's what I'm saying, though. They didn't even wait for the investigation. They
No.
jumped right in. They said, this is terrible. This is terrible. Well, it didn't really happen. Maybe you should have investigated before you just jumped right in. You know what I mean? That to me, and plus an allegation like that, which is what it is, without any proof, should have been investigated. Should be investigated. Of course it should be investigated. But it should also be investigated before you start condemning anybody or supporting anybody. You got to wait to see what the investigation revealed first. That's why you do an investigation.
Now, what I would say about that, though, is in that situation, there was no winner. Because if NASCAR didn't jump on it and immediately support him, then they look bad.
No, I disagree.
However,
I think it hurts them. I think what they did hurt them more than waiting for the investigation. It's like all the people
I think
who
either
jumped
way
on.
it's going to hurt them.
It's like all the people that jumped on about Trump and the Russian collusion before the investigation was even finished. And then what happened when the investigation was finished? You can't, when there's an investigation, that's why we have investigations, to find out what happened. So you can't comment and jump on someone's side before you even know what happens. That's what I'm saying. You have one person's side. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, but you just can't assume that everybody is telling the truth. That's why we have investigations, to find out what actually happened. And in NASCAR's instant, they didn't wait for that investigation. They jumped right on, and I think that's what hurt them more. I think more people stopped watching or were turned off by NASCAR because they didn't even wait for the investigation before they jumped on board with the narrative.
And that's very possible. And that, we can take that aspect of it and them NASCAR getting political and NASCAR being about NASCAR and the image of NASCAR and the branding of NASCAR, and really base that down to the root of the problem of NASCAR as a sport.
And what is that?
When NASCAR was the most popular and at its height, the focus was on the drivers. It was on the drivers and their rivalries and their skill and their talent and their abilities as a driver.
I would agree with all that.
It has switched. The focus is no longer about the drivers. The focus is about NASCAR as an organization. And it's about the chase. It's about the point system. It's about NASCAR as an organization.
And less about the drivers.
Correct.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sure. Sounds right.
And that is the main problem with NASCAR now. And that's, in my opinion, that's why they're losing viewers. That's why they're losing seats in the stands. That's why they have tracks like Dover that were sold out, sectioning off entire sections and putting big banners up to make it look like they're just, advertising stations, instead of, admitting the fact that they have 20,000 seats that are vacant.
Yeah.
And they're lowering ticket prices to the point to where, you can go to Dover for $35, $45 and get pretty decent seats. Whereas in the old days, people were paying $150 a seat.
Yeah.
And, people don't have that relatability anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have a driver that you relate with because you're not getting as much as that driver's history and that driver's story.
Yeah.
And that relatability through the TV.
I also think I also would I would agree with that, but I would also add to that what adds to not knowing the drivers is the way the races are broken up now into thirds. They throw cautions. Everybody can go in. You know, they've essentially taken pit stops was an essential component of the race. If there were no cautions, pit stops were huge. How much time you spent on pit lane was huge. You're essentially taking out any reason for pit stops to mean anything now.
Well, I would disagree with that. They've eliminated some of the pit stops, yes. But now, let's face it, how many races do you see that go green flag the whole way without there being a caution? And we'll go into whether or not NASCAR manipulates the race by throwing cautions or not.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to get into all that because we'll let the people who watch NASCAR decide that.
Yeah.
But I've seen several races this year alone that a mistake on the pit stop has cost somebody the race.
I mean, it's just not the same. What I'm saying is a pit stop under a caution's coming at this point, even if it's a green race all the way through, right? You know that you have a pit stop coming because they break the race up, and I think that changes the sport. That knowing that you have a caution coming at this lap changes the sport.
It might change the first 2/3 of the race, but the last part of the race, that last segment, it goes green flag long enough that they have to make a pit stop.
Well, not at every track necessarily. There's a third of a race. There's plenty of tracks that you can get 3 pit stops in, and then you're done.
The way they don't break them down equally, they don't break the segments down equally.
Is that right?
So the first segment might be 30 laps, the second segment might be 40 laps, and then the last segment's like 120 laps.
Yeah,
something like that.
It still changes.
It does change the dynamic.
It still changes the dynamic because you know a caution's coming. So if you don't know a caution's coming, then your strategy might be different. You know what I mean? You might decide to pit early. You know what I mean? But then if you know that caution's coming, you'll just wait. You'll just be like, oh, we'll just wait. 3 more laps, the caution's coming. But if you don't know that caution's coming, you might just need to bring it in to make a change. Your car's not running the way you need to. It needs a change. You bring that car in. But if you know a caution's coming, essentially, for a person who's limping around the track, who needs a car change, they need a wedge, all right? Or they need their sway bar adjusted. Yes, I know what I'm talking about. If like you're almost forcing them to stay out on the track more because there's a caution coming. Why would they pit and lose a lap or lose all that time if they just stay out? They could lose probably less time. You know what I'm saying? Like they're losing people who don't have the best car are losing time on the track because a caution's coming. So why come in early if you know a caution's coming? Then you got 2 pit stops.
In that situation, it could be advantageous to you to actually pit a little early, because then when you get the mandatory caution, you get the lucky dog, which allows you to get your lap back, and then you don't have to pit while everybody goes into the pits.
All right,
now you get your lap back. You're back on the lead lap, and you may have advanced your position even further.
All right, let's hang that situation up for a second. Because you brought up the lucky dog. All right, what is the lucky dog? Tell everybody who's watching what the lucky dog is, because this was the first. I understand why they did it. They did it for safety, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what is the lucky dog?
So the lucky dog, what the lucky dog is it's the first person a lap down. If there's a caution, they have the ability to get their lap back
without racing to the line.
Correct.
Because when a caution is thrown now, that's it. The field is
frozen at the last timing loop.
Yeah. Whereas opposed to before the lucky dog, and even before that, the leader of a race could slow down and let people who were lapped down just drive by them. And I understand why they did it. They did it because some people were on the track going slower. Other people on the track were doing max speed, trying to get their lap back. I understand why they did it. I still don't like it. Okay, I don't like it. I think only one person getting their lap back when there's a chance that more people could have. I don't like that.
And now there's also the wave around.
What is that?
So under a caution,
listen. This is not a G-rated show here, but we are at least PG-13 to R. Let's keep it clean here, okay? the wave around.
So, under caution, if you choose not to pit, you can actually go around the pace car and start at the tail end of the lead lap.
Ah.
I've seen it's been interesting.
That sounds like it works out.
Because what ends up happening is
there's
the
multiple
leaders
cautions
and stuff end up having to start behind them.
That's also dumb.
So it does cause some issues.
That's also stupid. Why can't they be at the tail end of the lead lap behind them? That's the tail end of the lead lap.
Get their lap back.
I don't.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, you're essentially giving them the pass to be on the lead lap. So why would you start them in front of the leader under a caution and not just let them go around to behind the field? Why give? I don't see.
Only NASCAR knows the answer to that.
Yeah. Again, it's like taking people who are not as good at the race. Okay, so let's say you're having a good race. There's not a lot of people out. There's 43 drivers. So let's say only 10 of them are a couple of laps down, or only one lap down, and you put these drivers. But if they're a lap down at that point, then there's probably a reason their car isn't running as fast or as good. Most likely, okay. So you're putting these people who don't have a fast-running car right in front of people who have a good-running car. That's how accidents happen.
Yeah.
I've never liked, and even when we were watching racing, there was a rule or a way that people could end up on the tail end, what you're saying, at the tail end of the lead lap in front of the leader, but behind the pace car. And that didn't make any sense to me back then either. I never understood that. Why would you do that? If they're on the lead lap, if you're under caution, let them get at the back of the field like a normal person.
Yeah.
Who starts the people who are not in position in first? If they're not in first, why are they not? You know what I mean? The guy who's leading the race should be leading the race.
Yeah.
So I don't get it.
And that gets very confusing. Like, even watching it on TV, sometimes you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
He's leading the race, but he's like 7 cars back.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, they got cars all around. You're like, wait a minute, who am I following? Who's the leader? That's it.
I got another rule change for you.
What's that?
So, you know how in NASCAR, if you're first and second, you start in the first row.
Yeah.
And the leader gets to choose whether he wants the inside or the outside.
Yeah.
And then everybody else behind him does not get that choice.
No.
They, third is on the inside.
Yes.
Fourth is on the outside. Fifth is on the inside. Sixth is on the outside.
I know what you're about to. Yeah, go ahead.
So now,
yeah,
they have this thing called lane choice.
Yeah.
So
also brilliant NASCAR.
Now, see, I actually like this.
Why?
Because let's say you get positions 1 through 6 that choose the inside lane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and now position 7 chooses the outside lane.
Yeah.
Well, he's now starting second.
Yeah, that's ridiculous to me.
But if those drivers 1 through 6 are dumb enough to want to start down on the white line, and I'm the 7th driver, then sure I'm going to take the outside.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? I would always listen to me. If I wasn't first, I would always take the outside line. I would be like, yeah, put me on the outside. I want to start right next to the leader. If everybody else has chosen the inside line, I would absolutely. I'd be like, yeah, I'll start on the outside line.
Absolutely.
Crazy?
So,
start me 8 positions ahead of my starting position. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand it at all.
I think that adds an element of excitement that actually did something good for the sport.
Oh man, very little.
Because I'm not saying it was this stupendous, magical thing that's going to fix NASCAR, but I think that was a decision that went in the right direction, in my opinion. Because even, your small-time dirt tracks or, some of your smaller series, they have lane choice.
In a dirt track, I would completely understand that, though. That's a different kind of race.
They also have, some of your small-time asphalt racing. They have lane choice.
No, see, I'm not listening.
So all of the other racing series that are oval-related have lane choice.
Yeah, but I'm not
Why
buying.
not have NASCAR have lane choice?
Because it's stupid.
But why?
Just because it is. Because a guy in 7th place shouldn't be able to start in 2nd. That's why. Listen, if you want to do lane choice, I don't even think there should be lane choice then. Make it all single file start. Fine. Make it single file start. That's how you should do it then.
Single file restart?
Single file, whatever.
Why?
Starts. Anytime there's a lane choice, I'm saying get rid of the lane choice. If you don't like an outside and inside, all single file. Those are your two choices. You have single file starts, or you have normal double file starts. This lane choice nonsense, I am particularly not on board with. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I think that's poo. It's poo on a stick.
So you're telling me you would rather it be the old way where it's
either double file or
file
single
or
file. Pick one.
Okay.
Or even pick, depending on whatever restart. I don't know how they're doing it. I'm just saying. This lane choice, no. I'm saying if everybody seems to want the inside lane, then just, all right, inside.
Now, see, I like it because I feel like it gives drivers more of their freedom of choice back. Let's say you're a driver who likes your car a little bit loose, and you have to run on the outside, and I'm a driver who likes my car tight, and I have to run on the inside line.
With the lane choice,
So,
but see, with the lane choice, I would
choice
choose with the lane choice
to run on the inside.
With the lane choice, I would choose whatever would get me closer to the front. I think.
But you also have to think about how your car handles too.
I mean, yeah, in a way,
Because
yes, you're right, but not if they're adding sticky stuff so that they have multiple lane racing. No, I don't actually.
Well, that stuff does wear off. I mean, again,
you're talking deep in you're already even a third of the way into the race. Who cares now? Then you're already in your position.
And they don't.
They don't have lane. Do they have lane choice on every restart, or is it just at the start of the race?
No, every restart.
See, that is also crazy to me. I could see even having it at the start of the race, but having it on every restart, that's ridiculous to me. That should not be a thing at all. It should be double file or single file at least after the start.
See, for me, I see more advantages to it than I see disadvantages.
I just think it's stupid. I think, absolutely. From the driver's perspective, there's advantages and disadvantages of both. I'll fully agree with that. As a fan, I think it's stupid. So that's just the way it is,
I think we'll just have to agree to disagree on that.
And that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I just, as a fan, I think it's stupid. But if you like it, that's great. And if people find it entertaining, it needs all that NASCAR does. The one thing we know we both can agree on is that NASCAR needs all the help it can get.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's certainly suffering right now. It's not doing good at all.
So what do you think NASCAR needs to do to be able to turn themselves around?
I think my biggest complaint and my biggest thing is breaking the race up. I think having it be broken up into thirds and having a postseason. I think you eliminate getting rid of the races being broken up into thirds. You get rid of that. You get rid of the postseason. You come up with a simplified point system. I've always liked. Listen, there's 43 drivers. Why can't it be first place gets 43 points, last place gets 1 point?
I think there's only 40 drivers now.
All right. Well,
but regardless,
yeah. But that's what I'm saying. All right, and then you could have a bonus point or even 2 bonus points for leading a lap, bonus point or 2 bonus points for leading the most lap. That's the simplest way. That's the best way you're going to get the most consistency championship win anyway, is by doing it as simple as that. That's always been the way I thought they should do it.
Yeah.
I never understood why first to second separates from 5 points and then 3 points when you get lower. That never made any sense to me. There's 43 drivers. First place gets 43. Last place gets 1. Bonus points for leading a lap. Bonus points for leading the most laps. And that's it. I don't see why it doesn't need to be that complicated.
No
in my
bonus
opinion.
Points for winning a race?
No, I don't. Yeah, you got 43 points. And you obviously would get the bonus point for leading the last lap.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't think winning the race should give you bonus points, especially since you would get the bonus point for leading at least a lap. So, yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it would, and I think that making it that simple would draw more attention. I think people would enjoy it more that way. It would be easier to follow the championship then. And I think breaking up the race into thirds is the immediate solution. Getting rid of the races being broken up and just let them race.
What about the chase?
Yeah, like I said, the postseason.
Do away with the postseason?
Yeah.
So I think that would bring back an appeal to, people who grew up watching NASCAR, during our time.
Yeah.
Or, our father's time.
Yeah.
But what do you think NASCAR could do to bring in new young viewers?
With the technology
generation?
today, they're already doing it. They have in-car cameras you can look up on your smartphone, on your device now. You can look up someone's inside car camera during a race right on your device.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's at. I think adding more things like that is what you should be doing. I think maybe adding it, maybe letting. I don't know if they've do it with all cars yet. Can you get an inside view from all cars yet? I don't know. I haven't looked in a while.
No, I don't believe it's all the cars.
But that's what I would do. I think I like the whole everything that they've done to take it online.
I believe you have to pay for. I don't think it's called Race View or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I also like the whole. I like everything that they've been doing online with the whole race tracking and stuff, where you can actually see the layout of the track, and then they have the little numbers. I like everything that they're doing with their online platform. I think that's all good stuff, and with their devices, I think that's all down the right road. But you got to change what people don't like about the sport is the way the sport operates right now. So until you fix that, I don't think you can't do anything else.
So what do you think about adding more road courses?
Road courses, I've never been a fan, personally, of road courses, but I understand why both drivers and other fans do like them, because it certainly is more about your skill as a driver than it is about the car, necessarily, because you can have a car that maybe is not handling so good, but if you're doing the road course right as a driver, then you can finish up much higher than you normally would, which is why in our time they always used to have those road course hires, remember?
Yes.
Boris said.
Yeah,
and they would always be hired by some of the independent teams for those road courses. And because they usually finished at least in the top and they were hired by teams who barely would get in the top 30, and they were happy. Okay, but some of these road course guys could get them in the not even in the top 20, but some of them can get them in the top 10, top 5s. Some of them even got wins.
Yeah.
Boris said got his first NASCAR win as a hired gun on a road course.
And you've probably just made some said heads very happy.
Yeah. Yes, well, he drove for Dale Earnhardt a number of times.
Yeah.
Both as a backup driver when he was driving for Richard Childress and under his DEI banner. So I know about Boris said.
I think he's a driver that was very underrated.
Yeah, definitely. But he also, when he finally got his shot, he was not really good on the oval courses. He just wasn't good. He just wasn't as good. It didn't transition. He's just one of those guys.
Now, was that
who was
him
a road
or was that
course.
the team?
No, I mean, he raced with Dale Earnhardt with DEI when it was, a real DEI company. When they were very strong, he filled in for a couple drivers. When Steve Park was injured, I believe.
Yes.
Boris said filled in for a couple weeks with him, and he just couldn't do the oval courses as good. He just couldn't transition that.
But you're talking a couple of weeks. I mean, give the man an entire season
Maybe.
to learn to, you have to, I think.
I wouldn't have a problem if they added more road courses.
You're discounting, team cohesiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. That could have been it. Yeah, and maybe if someone would have given him a shot and given him a full season, maybe he could have made it. I don't know. And I wouldn't mind seeing more road courses in NASCAR. Not that I watch much NASCAR anymore because, again, the sport is, just in the toilet. But if it got better, if they made the right changes, I would not mind if there were more road course wins. I never thought that they were quite as exciting, but, I do get the appeal. I understand the appeal to other to other people. Yeah. So I would not have a problem with it.
See, I personally like to see some road courses. Now, do I want to see a bunch of road courses? No. But a couple more than what they had, I think, is beneficial to the sport.
Yeah, I would say upwards of like 5, because there's 40 some races, or is there like 33 or 35? I'm not sure.
I'm honestly not sure.
You know who else is here with us? In addition to Nick, who wasn't able to make it until now, but we also have the Breeze is off screen. She is our resident person who is going to look up things. Breeze, could you tell us how many races in a season there are? Could you look that up for us? I'd appreciate it. The Breeze will not be on camera. She will be off camera, and she will look up things. Right?
Yes, very much.
Thanks for that commentary there, Nick. And so while we wait on the Breeze to tell us how many races there are,
I have the answer for you.
Oh, what's that?
It is 38 races spanning 10 months.
38 races. So there's 38 races. I could see upwards of five road courses.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, 5 road courses, maybe even 6.
Somewhere.
But there'd have to be 5 or 6 different road courses. What I'm saying, I'm saying, don't go back to Sears Point twice.
No.
It's okay to go to Daytona twice. It's not okay to go to Sears Point twice.
And the reason I had brought up the road courses is because I had just seen news fairly recently that they're actually going to be taking one of the larger oval courses. I believe it was Auto Club. I'm not 100% positive on that. But they're taking one of the oval tracks and turning it into a road course.
Yeah, I was also seeing something about they might be adding the Daytona road course to it as well.
They did do the Daytona road course this year.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I saw something about that. That's
Because
interesting.
Some of the tracks that they normally run, I think it was Watkins Glen, they were not able to run at, so they chose to run at the.
Honestly, I wouldn't.
course.
Yeah, honestly, you could substitute the Daytona road course in for any of the other road courses. I would take it. The Daytona's got a very fine road course, and there's actually a lot of customization with it. They can have some really nice road courses at Daytona. I'd be completely fine with them adding a Daytona road course to the schedule.
I think it. I might be mistaken. I believe it was Auto Club that they're actually turning into a short track.
Who?
Auto Club Speedway.
Where's that? I know all these speedways have names now. Back when we used to watch wrestling.
Yes, sir.
Which road course or which oval is it that they're turning into a short track? Is it Auto Club?
And what?
And where is Auto Club?
And what is Auto Club?
I believe that's California.
California, the California Speedway. Back when we used to watch racing, they were called by where they were. Pocono,
Texas,
Daytona,
Pocono, Daytona,
California, Michigan.
That answer to that question would be Fontana, California.
Fontana, California.
Fontana.
Speedway.
Yep, Fontana. Yep.
And they're turning that into a short track, right?
That is correct.
Well, California's a boring race anyway. Sorry. California is a speedway I never understood. I mean, when they first brought it in, when they first added it, because they added both, was it Texas and California in the 90s when we were watching wrestling.
Yes.
Breeze.
Yes.
The Breeze. We're going to get some use out of her tonight. Find out when California and Texas were added to the schedule. I want to say it was... I'm going to jump out on a limb, and I'm going to say it was in 97. 1997 was what I'm going to say.
I was thinking a little earlier. I was thinking like 93, 94.
Yeah, I'm thinking 97 or 96, but she will tell us in a moment. But I was never a fan of the California Speedway.
Yeah, it was just... That was a track
just
that was
boring.
notorious for just long green flag runs.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. It was
there wasn't a lot of
everybody
passing.
was spread out. See, that's a track where I get it. See, that's a track where I understand why NASCAR put in these mandatory cautions where they split the race up. It's for tracks like California. It's for tracks like Bristol where you can have long green flag runs. I mean, hundreds of laps green flag runs. Without a car, and then one person just runs away with it. I get that. But you know what? If they have a car that can do that, then they should be allowed to do it. Breaking the race up on all the other tracks is not helping your sport. I get why they did it. There are a few tracks where it can help and add value to the product that they make. But it hurts you on too many other tracks. As an overall thing, it hurts you more than it helps.
And I think we need to get more short tracks back and do away with some of the intermediate races.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of the intermediate tracks either. Does the Breeze have an answer?
The only one that I found so far an answer to for you, it did say Texas, their first debut on the Cup schedule was in 1998.
98. Okay.
And I want to say California was the same year.
Yeah, it was right around the same
Wasn't it
time.
the same year? I thought it was Texas and California were added that year to the schedule.
Right, I'm not seeing California yet.
You
but I
may
will
be
keep
right.
looking.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Breeze is going to keep looking on California, but we're going to move on past that. Yeah, I think we should get rid of some of the medium tracks too. I think, mainly California. Michigan's technically like a medium speedway, and I like Michigan. I'm a big fan of
I
Michigan.
like Michigan
and
too.
Texas are laid out the same. Michigan's just a little bit smaller than Texas, I believe, or Texas is smaller than Michigan. And Charlotte. Charlotte's also the same. Charlotte's the biggest of those three kind of tri-ovals.
Charlotte's been around for a very long time, though.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's still one of the best races. Some of the best races I've ever seen has been at Charlotte.
When they chopped the dog leg and made it more like boxed it off a little bit.
Yeah, like when they made it more of like a tri-oval,
Yeah.
or made it more like a boxed tri-oval than a tri-oval.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, because Michigan and Texas are laid out a little bit similarly to that also. Charlotte's just a little bit bigger than the other two tracks. And Charlotte's always been... Does the Breeze have...
Breeze has an answer.
What's that?
California has been racing annually for NASCAR since 1997.
Okay, so so California was 97, and then Texas they added a 98. It was in consecutive years.
So you
they
were
added
right.
it. Yes, I was. Thank you. I still remember, because I used to watch it back then. I don't watch it now, but I used to watch it back then.
So you don't have some of the timers yet?
No. So yeah, some of the medium speedways I would agree with would need to go. Like, I'm not a fan of California. I'm also not a fan of Las Vegas. I'm also not a fan of Las Vegas.
I could leave Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas I'm also not a fan of. That's pretty boring in my opinion too. I was never really a big fan of...
How do you feel about Richmond?
Richmond is it's an interesting short track. Yeah, they're an interesting short track, but they're a short track, but they're a mile short track. The way that the way it's set up is very unique. That's why I kind of like Richmond. I think Richmond's a good unique track that they should keep on the schedule, just like Bristol, Dover, very unique tracks. And that some of the short tracks, most of the short tracks usually are unique. It's the big tracks that tend to look alike or feel similar. Like Daytona and Talladega, the two super speedways are laid out pretty similar. The only difference is the location of the start-finish line.
That and Talladega's longer.
Talladega's just under a half mile longer than Daytona. Daytona's, I believe, about 2.2, and Talladega, I believe, is 2.5 and a half. 2.55 or 2.6, if I'm not mistaken.
That'd be all on you. I just know it's longer.
All right. Well, if you want, we'll have the Breeze look it up, but that's going to put me way up in points in terms of being right.
I'm just going to give that one to you because I don't even know.
Yeah. I do play a lot of racing games too, and track distance is something I look at.
I used to.
When we were kids and we had time.
Time? What is that?
Yeah. Well, we've made time tonight.
Something we don't have much of.
No, but we certainly did make time tonight.
We did.
But yeah, I would get rid of some of the medium tracks, add more short tracks or more larger tracks. That's definitely something I would do, along with the road courses.
I think that would get the sport back on track, along with doing away with the chase and
breaking
segmenting.
Up. Yep, and segmenting the race. Yeah.
But I think we also need to take a look at the cars. I think we need to make it so that the cars do dance around a little bit.
See, I don't
appear to be a handful. Like, I'm not saying that they need to be a handful and they need to handle like crap and that they need to have aerodynamic issues.
Yeah, no.
But I think
what you're saying.
They need to appear to be more racing.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is they made them too universal. Like, now there's almost no difference between a Ford and a Chevy on a NASCAR track. You know? Very little, dude. Very little.
During our time, though, there wasn't any...
There actually was.
They were
It didn't appear to us so much from watching on TV, but there really was. If you got up close, they really were shaped differently, just a little bit. You know what I mean? Again, not big differences, but they were shaped different. The Monte Carlo was different than the Taurus. They were shaped a little differently. I also think you don't know what changes to make to the car until you stop breaking up the race, because we've never seen some of these cars go for 150 laps at Bristol. You know what I mean? We've never seen them push the envelope at Daytona and try and push it to that lap 40 or 45. You know what I mean? So there's not a whole lot of the cars being pushed to the limit the way the cars were when we used to watch it. So I don't think you could make changes to the car until you get rid of the rule changes and run them as a real race again to see how the cars react.
I think what would be an interesting test for NASCAR to do is take the car they have today with all of its safety features and its suspension features, and take all of that and put an old school NASCAR body on it and see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get them to go backwards. I don't think we'll ever get them to go back to an old version of the car or anything like that. I think the best we can hope for is that they change up the car that they have now a little bit. And like I said, I don't think you can really know what changes you need to make to the car until you start running full races without them being broken up into segments and stuff. really it has to come down to some of the changes they made to the sport itself. They have to revert some of those changes before you can try and even think about what else can you do to try and bring more people in. Because if the overall product is crap, no one wants to watch it no matter what kind of technological advances or anything you're bringing into it.
This is true. And another aspect that we're completely forgetting about.
What is that?
Is let's take NASCAR, the organization, out of the picture for a second. Let's talk about the drivers.
Yeah.
We used to have the Dale Earnhardts and the Jeff Gordons. God, that left a taste in my mouth. And the Tony, even Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
And Dale Jr., Terry Labonte, Bobby Labonte. And then you could even start going further back. Richard Petty, Davey Allison, Bobby Allison, Kel Yarborough.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson. You got to give Jimmy Johnson credit. Even though, he got a lot of his wins in the newer format. You don't get 7 championships without being a hell of a driver.
Yeah, he is good. Jimmy Johnson's a fine driver, and he raced for a little bit before all the rule changes took place.
Yes.
He's been racing a long time, and he is a good driver. He also has a good team.
As much as
Hendrick gave him a hell of a team behind him, so
I can't believe I'm going to go on tape as saying this because I cannot stand his personality. But Kyle Busch.
No, I'm not agreeing with Shrub.
He is a hell of a
driver. No, I'm not
driver.
agreeing with Shrub. No.
The man
Get
can
out of
drive
here. Get off the show. Get out. Just get out. Breeze, you're replacing Nick. Get over here. We're not doing it.
Hear me out.
No, I don't think I will, actually. I'm sorry. There's no argument that you can give me where Shrub is a candidate for anything.
He's a hell of a driver and can drive the wheels off of any damn thing you give him.
That's fantastic.
However, as a person, his personality, yes, he is a complete and total tool.
Yes. Listen, Shrub, I'm not happy about Shrub. And he's
But
also not as good as he thinks he is. How many championships does he have? Not as many as other people, and that was the chief point of me bringing it up. If he was good as he thought as he thinks he is, he would already be the 8-time Cup champion. Okay?
And then you have Kevin Harvick.
Who's in my opinion, being a Dale Earnhardt driver, a big disappointment.
I think he had. Well, look what he did this season. He had.
And we're not even going to talk for 1 second. I will not even allow the topic to be broached about what I think about Austin Dillon driving the number 3. No, I have a number 3 tattoo. I have a Dale Earnhardt tattoo on my arm, and
I think the number should have been retired.
No, absolutely not. I cannot believe that Richard Childress allowed the 3 to come back. I don't care I don't care. There's nothing that anybody can say to me short of a recording of Dale Earnhardt or a signed document by Dale Earnhardt saying that it was okay. It's not okay for someone to be driving the number 3 whose last name is not Earnhardt. It's not okay. I don't care. Richard Petty, it was his choice to put somebody in the 43. Okay?
Yeah.
It was his choice to do that. That's fine. Dale Earnhardt did not make that choice, and nobody else can make it for him.
But Dale Earnhardt never owned that number. It was always
it was Richard Childress. Yeah, number. I know, and I don't care. I don't care. Richard Childress, Kim, because I don't like him. There should have never been another number 3.
Well,
ever.
Dale didn't always drive the number 3.
Of course. Who are you talking to? Did I know that Dale didn't always drive the number 3? I'll throw you out the window right now, live on the podcast, out the window. Tell me Do I know
I just wanted to make sure some of the timers wasn't kicking.
Why do you think the numbers under? Why do you think the DEI numbers, when DEI was a thing, were 1, 15, and what was the other one? Oh, shoot me! I'm totally drawing a blank now on what his third number was. One was Steve Park. 8. Damn right, it was 8. Which actually was Ralph Earnhardt, Dale Earnhardt Senior, Dale Earnhardt's father's number was 8. But that's why he chose 1 and 15. That's why 1 and 15 were his other numbers. 1 and 15, or at least the number 15 was a car he drove when Wrangler was the sponsor. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And did you also know that he drove the number 2 car?
It's actually called the K2 car, and it was pink.
No, he drove the number 2 Wrangler car.
That's actually not true.
Yes.
No, he's lying.
It was a blue and yellow car.
Yeah, it's possible that that his car was briefly the number 2 car.
But my point on that is Dale Earnhardt wasn't just the number 3. So I don't, as much as I, again,
You should be very
can't
careful.
stand.
I want to get close to the mic for this one. You should be very careful about the next words that come out of your mouth.
cannot stand the fact that they have a subpar driver.
Nobody,
driving the number
I told
3.
you, unless his name is Earnhardt, there shouldn't be driving it. I don't care. There's nothing that can be said. I don't care. I understand what you're saying, that he wasn't always the number, that he wasn't always 3. He had, yeah, but guess
Dale
what?
Earnhardt could have been driving any number from 1
3
through
but he
100.
he adopted the Man in Black persona, the black number 3, the style he drove in. It was a perfect alignment of things. That's why when you think of Dale Earnhardt, you think of the black number 3 and not the yellow and blue Wrangler car, even though he did drive that for a good number of years.
Well, actually, I think of just black Goodwrench.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying.
the number on the side was...
No, it's always been the number 3. That's
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and it was his driving style. That's when he really got in. I mean, he always had the driving style, but that's where he really put on the shows, was when he got into the black number 3, man. It was the Intimidator. That's when he became the Intimidator. That's why that's his number. That's why he can't. And plus, he gave the other numbers he had, 1, 15, 8. He gave them to people already. That's why I don't care if there are other 1s and 15s and 8s out there. Even though, let's not even talk about how Dale Jr. was boned out of driving the number 8 and had to drive the number 88 for a few years.
Well, Dale Jr. just kind of got the shaft all the way around.
Yes, he did. Yes,
after
he did.
his dad passed.
Yes, he did.
But
because
that could be a whole show all of its own.
yes, because Teresa is a 5-letter word. But that's, he gave out the other numbers. He didn't. He did not give out the number 3. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Unless you got him on camera or a written document that says it was okay for someone else to take over the number 3, I don't. There's nothing short of that I'm buying.
All right, so let's move on from that.
Fine. You're the one that wanted to go on about it. I told you I didn't want to hear it.
I just, we'll have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, no. That's the answer to that one. We don't agree to disagree on that topic, okay? The answer is no.
So the answer is just no.
Yes, that's correct.
So let's talk about the fact that Dale Earnhardt was able to make a company that was able to compete with, the names of the day, Hendrick and even Childress. Dale Sr. made a race team that had, was it 3 or 4 cars?
DEI was 3 cars. The number 8, the number 1, and the number 15.
And
it was at its strongest when Dale Jr. was driving the 8. Michael Waltrip was in the 15. And then number 1, Steve Park was in the number 1 for a while, but then it was oh my goodness, I'm totally drawing a blank. Oh, Paul Menard. Was it Paul Menard? No, he took over the 15 after Michael Waltrip.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember who drove the number 1. Steve Park was in it for a while in the Pennzoil number 1 car. But I can't remember who took over for a little while after him. But yeah, that's when it was at its strongest. The Breeze, sure. The Breeze, who drove the number 1 car after Steve Park? We'll see if she comes up with an answer or not.
And
that's
a
lot
of
that
like
Google's gonna be like, who the fuck?
You brought up Michael Waltrip.
Yeah, that was his best. The highlight of his career was when he drove for DEI.
So let's think about the fact that Dale Sr. was able to take a driver like Michael Waltrip, where even Michael Waltrip asked, "Are you sure you want to put me in your car?"
Yeah, gave him a career because he was gone from racing at the time. He wasn't a commentator. He wasn't in.
He was nothing.
Yeah, and then he came back, started winning,
and
won the Daytona 500 where Dale Sr. died. Do you have an answer?
I sure do. Jeff Green.
Who was after him?
Who was after Jeff Green?
Yeah.
All right.
I'd ask you for how many races Jeff Green drove for, but it can't be more than 5.
Considered both of us were like,
yeah. I mean, I know
Green.
Jeff Green, but I definitely wasn't ready for that name. That's why I'm like, no, that can't. I was like, that's like got to be for like one afternoon.
Fill-in driver.
Yeah, he qualified once.
But, and then, to have I believe it was his first, was it his first NASCAR win? And it was the Daytona 500?
Michael Waltrip?
Yes. To be the race that, I mean, come on, let's look at it this way. How many people remember Michael Waltrip won the race that Dale Sr. died in?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but he did. But I mean, they do remember. I mean, most people would know, or at least you would hope that they know that it was his cars that were first and second.
Yes.
Whether they knew it was Michael Waltrip and Dale Jr.
So what's that answer, Breeze?
How does Jamie McMurray sound?
Jamie McMurray.
Oh, no, then you're after. No, that's after. Or man, that's after I stopped watching it, because I do remember when Jamie McMurray. So really, it was Jeff Green and then Jamie McMurray. Huh. So I guess the number one car did kind of disappear and wasn't really a thing for a while after Steve Park. I guess he was the primary number one driver. So, yeah.
But, and that as a driver, I mean, and not even just a driver, as a person, the kind of toll that would have to take on you, to win something as prestigious as the Daytona 500. And then, be in victory lane and ready to celebrate and,
he celebrated.
The high of your life.
He didn't, that nobody told him about anything until later on. He was on the high, dude. He wasn't looking
No, they
in the
told
rear
him that
view
night.
mirror. Yeah, that night. But I'm saying when he got out the car, he didn't know about anything. He got to enjoy that moment at least.
Yeah, the victory lane.
Yeah, he got to enjoy the victory lane moment because he definitely didn't know what was going on, and him and Darrell Waltrip getting to share that was also pretty cool. Also, and yeah, it was a shame that was the same, because also images of Michael Waltrip and Darrell Waltrip, enjoying the victory that just happened. It was also scenes of Dale Jr. running to the ambulance, and you know what I mean. Like, it's terrible that happened, but yeah.
And then,
but Michael Waltrip still remembers it for the good stuff, though. Like, he doesn't remember for that.
It was still. I'm sure it was still hard for him.
Yes, I'm absolutely, absolutely.
Dale Sr. was the owner of his car.
Yes, absolutely.
But they were also friends.
Yes, and then the 5-letter word took over after he died, and DEI went right in the toilet. And let's be clear,
very quickly.
Let's be clear, because I know a lot about Dale Earnhardt. Dale Sr. created Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. His intention was always, he created it for Dale Jr. He wanted the entire organization to be built around Dale Jr. He wanted Dale Jr. to have a good team so that he could have a good career and a safe career racing. And that was his goal. His ultimate goal was then to hand it off to Dale Jr. when he retired. You know how I know this? Because I read things. And Teresa did everything the opposite of what Dale Sr. wanted to do. She did everything the opposite of what he wanted. Everything.
Yep. Absolutely. She didn't want him to be a part of that at all.
Nope.
And he even offered to let her have a equal stake of the company. He just wanted to have 50-50.
Yeah, and then controlling majority. He wanted a 50-50, but said that the operative decisions were made by him.
And she absolutely refused to give that to him.
Yep, and that's terrible. Just terrible.
He gave her all of the stock and basically told her to choke on it.
Yep. And then Hendrick was all too glad to pick him up.
Oh yeah. I mean, wouldn't you have been?
Yep.
Now,
and it's too bad Dale Jr. didn't get to be a multi-time Cup champion the way his father was. But Dale Jr., and I recommend the movie 3. If you want to know more about Dale Jr., you should watch the movie 3.
It's a great movie.
And it also shows a little bit about Dale Jr.'s childhood and stuff, too. I mean, he didn't have the easiest childhood. He didn't have the easiest reputation to live up to. So he did fine. He was a popular driver. He was a good driver. He wasn't the greatest driver of all time. He wasn't his father, but he did good. And he was popular, and he got to win some good races.
He was voted most popular driver. For 20 years in a row.
Yeah.
He was voted most popular driver on a year when he wasn't even allowed to be the most popular driver.
Yeah, I think he's still being voted most popular driver.
And he's retired.
Of course, he has his own podcast now. You should look it up. I don't know the name of it because I don't really.
Dirty Mo
watched,
Radio.
Okay, I watched it only a couple times. I don't. I'm. It's good. It's good. It's good.
I like some of the. he gets very nostalgic sometimes, and brings in some old school drivers and talks with them.
Yeah.
Talks about stories about how they interacted with his dad and stuff.
Yeah.
And those could be some stories.
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. Yes. You should check that out too, Dale Jr.'s podcast. So, yeah, we pretty much covered mostly everything there. What about, do you know how they're doing with the coronavirus? Or what they've been doing? Empty bleachers, just like everybody else?
It depends on the state.
Yeah.
A lot of places they had empty seats for a very well, as you know, for part of the season they couldn't even race at all. Like they were shut down completely, so they filled in by doing virtual racing. They used, I believe it was iRacing.
Yeah.
And they were televising that. That was a little interesting.
Yeah, no doubt that was interesting.
It was kind of like watching a video game.
Yeah, that's what iRacing is, really. It's a video game. They should have just given them NASCAR 20.
I tried very hard to get in.
I thought it was interesting, and I thought that was an interesting aspect for them to try and do. It was certainly worth a shot, if nothing else.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at that point, what do you have? You grab what you can and try to work with it.
I mean, wrestling, I mean, baseball is doing what they've been doing, you know, and both baseball and football have the fake crowd noise, which I'm not a fan of. I don't care if it's quiet, but the fake crowd noise, I'm really not into the fake crowd noise.
And then
wrestling, of course, the WWE did the Thunderdome, which was a terrible travesty, and they should not have continued it, but they're still continuing it. The AEW, they did empty arenas, and then they had the wrestlers come down during their empty arena shows, where they had the good guys on one side, bad guys on the other side. That was cool.
I could see that.
Yeah,
working.
that was good. That was good. That was good. And I'm sure the Thunderdome from the WWE, where they had all the TV set up and people could join virtually. I don't know if you heard about all the problems that they had with that.
No, I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, apparently there was like hate groups and KKK organizations and all kinds of things that were in the background.
Oh.
They didn't vet all the people who were on the other end of these screens.
Yeah, that's an issue.
So, yeah, and personally, I don't really care for it either. I think it's stupid. Having all these TVs set up and having all these weird people being seen on I don't know. That to me was weird. So
imagine being a professional athlete for a minute, whether you're a basketball player, football player, hockey player, NASCAR driver.
Yeah, with no crowd.
And even just NASCAR, you know, you win.
NASCAR may be less than others because, like in football, baseball, you feed off the crowd sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and my thing was also in wrestling because AEW, they had empty arenas except for like I said, the wrestlers good and the bad guys, and they were cutting promos still with an empty arena. Do you know how hard it is to cut a promo in an empty arena to not have the crowd react off of you? Because that helps. That helps a lot. That lets you know whether or not if you're saying good things or not. The reaction of the crowd. Trying to cut a promo without the crowd, that takes balls. I gave mad props to everybody in AEW that was given promos without the crowd in there. That is hard to do. I don't care.
Well, and I would think it'd be really difficult for football too.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
with no crowd,
you're the quarterback and you just throw the game-winning touchdown. And the catch was some sort of fantastical, magical, you have no idea how the hell that happened, winging a prayer, and all you hear is crickets.
See, for me, though, I don't even think it would be right after a good play, because you got your teammates and stuff are hyped. I think it would be after that initial wears off. Sometimes you rely on the crowd to keep that hype going.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, you're starting at year 20. You snap the ball, you throw a 40-yard pass, the people are crazy, you know, everybody's crazy, the crowd hypes up, you go for another one, and it's an incomplete pass. Usually one incomplete pass doesn't take the wind out of the sails of the crowd of a home team. So, you know, but it can take the wind out of your sails, you know what I mean? You throw that incomplete pass, damn, you know, oh, shit. But if the crowd's still there, if the crowd's still there, you know, yeah, then, you know, you're still hyped, you still feel that adrenaline, you know what I mean? It keeps your adrenaline level up. But with no crowd, one mistake could really deflate you, I think, in football. I think that's where the challenge is in football. It's not on the immediate good play. It's on the second and third play when the crowd's not there to keep the adrenaline up. Because you got 50,000 people screaming, and your adrenaline's going to be up after you make a good play. Even if you do even if you have one incomplete pass or a run that doesn't go anywhere, the crowd's still going to be up, and that's going to keep you up. But without that crowd to try and maintain that's got to be difficult.
Yeah, I would think it would be. And even in NASCAR, though, if you think about it,
after the race, absolutely,
after the race, you win, and
you're
they're there
exhausted.
to put on a show for the fans.
Yeah, and you got to be tired after a long
race tired,
too.
You're exhausted. You've just won a race.
Victory lane, yeah.
And even let's say it was your first win.
Yeah,
a very special win.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you want to share with your fans and the crowd, and you get out of the car and you throw your hands up in the air. And there's nobody there to witness what you just did. And it's just like, yeah.
Yep.
At that point, what do? Like, yeah, your teammates are excited for you, but your teammates are always excited for you.
Yeah.
Your teammates are always there to lift you up. Even when you come in 43rd and you wrecked on the first lap, your teammates, oh man, it's a bad rap. You'll get them next week. It's all good.
Yep.
But the fans are what drive you.
Breeze, could you check my phone? I believe it may be vibrating, and I need to see if the next guest has contacted me. So, with no crowd, especially in Victory Lane, you get out, there's an initial celebration, but the air probably goes out of your sails pretty quick with no crowd. Although NASCAR wasn't having much of a crowd prior to coronavirus.
Yeah, but at least they had
so maybe
something.
They're used to it. Did he?
We need a PIN number. It just says you have a voicemail.
I'm not. All right, I'll check it then in a few minutes. Well, I think we're going to be about wrapping it up. We talked about NASCAR. We pretty much covered that in great detail there, at least about the sport and what's wrong with it and why it certainly is suffering. Wait, in just a few moments, we'll be doing another podcast with Curtis. Of course, you all won't be able to see it until I post it the day after you watch this one. You can make sure you go to the webpage, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all of those things that you do on social media. Facebook.com/JD/The Boiling Point podcast, and buy some gear. I will have all the links to where you can find things.
What was that link again?
Facebook.com/The Boiling Point podcast.
Okay.
Sometimes I get tongue-tied. See? It's happened again. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you tune into the next one. We'll be talking about the Star Trek franchise, which Nick will also be joining us for. Until next time, we sign off.